Just 2 miles from the White House, black enslaved laborers building the Capitol lived in D.C.'s oldest neighborhood, Georgetown.
Most of the enslaved people did not live with their owners. Where did they live? Within those black communities. In fact, many of the free blacks and enslaved people were actually married.
By 1830, most African Americans were free who lived here. The people who were enslaved worked, worshipped, and lived together. So when you talk about the Underground Railroad and you talk about 2/3 of the people here that were free, they had a bit of the slight advantage to help those who were enslaved. And so it made it easier to strategize.
It was places like here, the Mount Zion and Female Union Band Cemetery, that the community could assist those traveling on the Underground Railroad.
Black churches around D.C. and in Georgetown would leave clothing here, food, knowing that people were here. William Still, an abolitionist, wrote about people coming through the Georgetown Cemetery, hiding behind the monuments.
When we're thinking of concealed spaces in the history of the Underground Railroad, we're lucky enough to have one right here, and that is the burial vault at Mount Zion Cemetery. It would be here that freedom seekers might hide for several days, or perhaps, if they're unlucky, weeks. And among the urns and coffins, they would risk everything for freedom. Can you imagine spending a day, a night, or longer in here, in a space that may not exceed 10 feet square? It is a tangible symbol of some of the discomforts that our ancestors were willing to endure in order to secure freedom.
These days, there's a different battle going on in Georgetown.
So in many cases, African-American burial sites are intentionally or unintentionally erased over time.
We're right beside the white-only cemetery, and you can see the difference in care, a cemetery that was established 50 years after we were here. It was given government appropriations. They were able to create their own engineering underwater storm management system. The city didn't do any stormwater management, so we get sucked into all the land erosion. The irony is, in this neighborhood, a lot of those who were enslaved came from George Washington's plantation. Some of those enslaved people are buried here.
Now, though, archaeologists are working to honor the people buried here, using technology to locate their lost graves and revive this forgotten history. As freedom seekers made their way north to Canada on the Underground Railroad, some were assisted by free black people in the Washington, D.C. neighborhood of Georgetown. This cemetery serves as a memorial for those who sought refuge on its ground and those who lived and died here.
People are buried everywhere, on this hill and down in the ravine.
Many of those graves that gave freedom seekers a place to hide have been forgotten or lost. LiDAR imagery of the site reveals deteriorating topography that could destroy hundreds of undiscovered remains and artifacts. So Lisa Fager is working to restore the cemetery and is teaming up with archaeological investigators and students in an effort to uncover and record monuments lost to time. Together, they are searching the cemetery using high-tech gear, including ground-penetrating radar to discover what is in the soil beneath.
Here, we're going to use this to look for graves and unmarked locations where people were buried.
At Mount Zion, the soil there is very conductive, which means that the GPR data is absorbed more readily. We can see more deeply, looking for graves. So this data logger tells us where in the grid each line of data is.
Archaeology can find foundations and say, what is this doing here? It's called historical archaeology. And so we need the historical record.
So far, they've uncovered enough tombstones and decorative artifacts to locate more than 100 lost graves.
I think that we're on the right track to kind of uncovering a lot of this history, especially as it relates to Mount Zion Cemetery and this park that we're sitting on. I definitely think we're moving in the right direction.
There's far more work to be done to identify the remains and understand how these people fit into the broader history of the Underground Railroad.
The fallen headstones are like chronicles in stone of America and the contributions of enslaved and free Americans to the community, to the state, to the city, and to the country at large.
For Lisa, this work is crucial to protect the history of the Black community, to remember those who passed through on the road to freedom, and to honor those who assisted them.
I think about all these lost stories. So many people are in here. I do not want to go to my death leaving this place the same way as it is now.
For somebody working to uncover the secrets of the Underground Railroad, the struggles of freedom seekers are more relevant than ever.
The Underground Railroad, which is a golden chapter in the history of human endeavor, reminds us that Black people were courageous, Black people were smart, and that there were occasions when bold white folk who recognized with us that injustice needs to be dealt with, and they were willing to risk their lives to work along.
To me, the legacy is really about ingenuity, it's about creativity, it's about resilience. It's really about all of the powerful things that you have to bring to bear to get yourself out of slavery. And what a wonderful model for any of us to rely on to get ourselves out of whatever we're facing today in the world.